for the upcoming summit. And over the weekend at a security conference in Singapore, Mattis said he anticipates the road ahead for negotiations will be bumpy at best. But in order for diplomats to negotiate from a position of strength, Mattis told defense officials from South Korea and Japan that the U.S. and its allies need to keep the pressure on Pyongyang and maintain a strong defensive stance.
We must remain vigilant, and we will continue to implement all UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea. North Korea will receive relief only when it demonstrates verifiable and irreversible steps to denuclearization.
Just over a week before the summit, the White House is tamping down expectations as well and now suggests the sit-down is only the beginning of a much longer negotiation.
Negotiations take time. Everything's on the table during the negotiations, but you can't expect you're not going to change Rome in a day. And I think that's a very realistic attitude. Everybody says you can't do it. We can't do it. President says, hang on a second. We may be able to do it.
Kim Jong-un is making some changes ahead of the summit as well by replacing his top 3 military officials, according to South Korea's Yonhap news agency. Now, it's not entirely clear what his motivations behind that move are, but some analysts believe those officials whom Kim replaced were less open to the idea of denuclearization. Abby, Stephen, Brian?
All right, Garrett, thank you very much. And in fact, some have surmised that maybe he fired those top 3 hardliner generals because when he was in Singapore, they might actually try a coup.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise anyone. I still want to know what was in that gigantic letter, though. We haven't heard yet from President Trump. Why was it so big, and actually what was written from Kim Jong-un directly to President Trump? There, the letter is right there.
So General Mattis just spoke right before our show. He's going to en route to China. He wrapped up in Singapore. He's going back. And he wanted everyone to know, listen, the road to this negotiation is going to be bumpy. There's going to be good days and going to be bad days. It's not going to be we're going to just hand over all the nukes. And I asked the president that, too. What about the thought that we don't even know where all their nukes are, and they're so complicated and it's such a big program, it might take some time. And keep this in mind, too. If the ultimate goal is denuclearization and irretrievable, unrevocable, all types of negativity towards nukes, how are you going to go about it? And he says it might take phases. Listen.
And you're okay with a phase-in of a denuclearization if confidence measures are required?
We're going to see. I'd like to have it done immediately. But, you know, physically, a phase-in may be a little bit necessary. It would have to be a rapid phase-in, but I'd like to see it done at one time.
So let me get this straight, Brian. You asked him about the phases, but you didn't ask him about the big envelope.
No, because I didn't know
that
yet. I didn't know about it.
You know what? I think he's right to set those expectations because he knows the response from the media. If they leave the Singapore summit, they shake hands, and it's not the end of the Korean War, and it's not a unification of the North and South. He knows that the media is going to say, well, who failed on this part? So he's trying to set the right expectations, saying this is going to take a long period of time. We're going to have many conversations going
It's
forward.
a negotiation. You know, initially it was, you got to pull the plug immediately. Now it's kind of like, well, we'll see what happens. You know, did you realize today at high noon East Coast time, the president will have been in office 500 days. And if you want to know what, the graphic there says 500 days of winning. In the president's estimation, these are some of the things he is winning on. The economy right now, look at this, a 3.8% unemployment. Of course, a historic tax cut passed through Congress. ISIS has been decimated. When it comes to North Korea, got those prisoners released, and a summit is upcoming with Kim Jong-un, also left the Iran deal, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And in addition to Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, 1/8 of the appellate court judges in the United States right now were appointed by President Trump.
What's pretty significant when you lay out those facts, and there's still more to do, by the way, in this country, still more work to be done. But all of those things you just listed were priorities of then Donald Trump as a candidate. When he was running for the office of the presidency, he said, this is what I want to get done if I become president. I think we are so not used to politicians following through on things they promise. And so whether or not you agree with things that have been put in place in the last year, last 500 days, I guess, he's followed through on them.
So what happens is he sees a deadline, he tries to get it. If he doesn't get everything, like he wanted $25 billion for the wall, it didn't happen. Mexico's going to pay for the wall, not yet. But he got 1.6 in the beginning. I saw a video of it. that they're beginning to build the wall in the exact section that we were at. So putting up this this huge wall, this is fencing, bollard fencing, I think it's called. It's beginning to go up in areas in which it's in, so that's good. But when he said in September, if I don't get the money for the wall, I'm shutting the government down. And if you're going to try to give me another omnibus like this, I'm not signing it. You just watched him pull out of all these deals and move an embassy.
Right.
What makes you think that he's going to move that deadline?
Right.
Hopefully everyone realizes that in this case, the businessman, when it comes to deadlines, actually looks at them as deadlines.
Right. But here's the thing. The September deadline regarding the next omnibus is 90 days before an election. And
So you think he might pull back and maybe delay that till after the election?
Just saying, he wants a red wave, not a blue wave.
Yeah.
We're going to talk all things 500 days with Kellyanne Conway. She's going to join us live at 8:30. Meanwhile, here's an interesting question. Can you trust big tech? We've got two stories. One about, it's a big front page story on Facebook and the New York Times, and the other is about Google. It looks like Google is under fire because it seems to have an anti-conservative or anti-Republican tilt. For instance, when you Google, apparently some people Googled California Republican Party, and Nazism came up. And then you Google.
The same thing happened with this GOP state
Right.
senator. The bigot came up across her face. We actually had her on the show yesterday, and we asked her about that, and she said they've got a lot of work to do. You've got, here she is right there.
Trudy Wade.
Trudy Wade, you got to get to a place where if this comes up, you can immediately take it down. Right now, it just lives on the interwebs for everyone to see.
we blurred a picture to hide our identity. I'm not sure why we blurred that. But they did apologize. But is that good enough?
Yeah.
If it comes on your name one time on Google, someone's going to see the one segment on a popular show. Is that going to outdo everything? Neil Ferguson called this. He was with the Hoover Institute. He said Silicon Valley feels as though the Trump campaign did such a great job using social media. They feel like that they got hurt by that, and they're going to make things right in the midterms.
Right.
He told conservatives, look out what Silicon
Right.
Valley is going to do to you. And that's what these stories are about.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Remember when Mark Zuckerberg was in the hot seat regarding your private data, and he said this about all your secrets.
Every piece of content that you share on Facebook, you own, and you have complete control over who sees it and how you share it.
But that is not true.
That's just not accurate.
According to the New York Times, they've got this thing today that says that Facebook gave 60 device makers over the last 10 years deep access to data on Facebook of the users and the users' friends, and they allowed the access to the friends who did not actually give consent. Most of the partnerships remain in effect today, but remember the big story in the spring was about Cambridge Analytica, and they've started winding that back. However, the Facebook leaders said that kind of access has been cut off. But that's not true because it exempted makers of cell phones and tablets and hardware.
So they said they did nothing wrong. Facebook continues to say that. But if you listen to Newt Gingrich yesterday, he said if this doesn't change, then Mark Zuckerberg's going to do a lot more testimony.
And Devin Nunes says I might be hauling in Google soon. I'll Google that. Meanwhile, 11 minutes after the hour, if you Google Jillian Milley, it comes up superstar.
I would have no idea. That's why I don't Google my name, because I don't want to know what it says.
You're the one who doesn't Google their name.
I do not. Good
I knew I'd
morning
meet
to
somebody.
you guys. Good morning to you at home. Let's begin with a Fox News alert. At least 25 people are dead, hundreds more injured after a volcano violently erupts in Guatemala. The volcano of fire spewing lava, black smoke, and ash into the air. The molten rock cutting off roads after the volcano's second eruption this year. More than 3,000 people have been evacuated. And this powerful photo showing firefighter crying, leaving a village. Hundreds of rescuers are looking for victims. The fate of an illegal immigrant who killed a border agent will be decided today. Gustavo Sandoval faces the death penalty after a Texas jury convicted him of capital murder. Sandoval brutally shot and killed Javier Vega Jr. while his family was fishing in 2014. Sandoval's alleged accomplice, Ismael Hernandez Vallejo, is awaiting trial for the same charges. Police officers go above and beyond to support the family of a fallen brother. Look at this, 39 Indiana cops from 6 different departments supporting Lauren Rich at her high school graduation. Lauren's dad was shot and killed in the line of duty when she was just 7 years old. A police sergeant tweeting this photo saying they would never forget her family's sacrifice. Isn't that incredible? All those years later.
That is
Over
amazing.
10 years later,
Yep.
still with the family.
What a powerful photo.
All
Thank
right.
you, Jillian.
Thank you. Coming up on this Monday, President Trump's attorneys say he cannot be found guilty of obstruction of justice. Are they right? Former U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy, National Review, is going to join Brian next.
And this pace car driver had one job, and he failed miserably. Wait till you hear who was behind the wheel. And I hope he had collision. All right, President Trump's attorneys making their case for why he cannot be guilty of obstruction of justice in a 20-page letter sent to Bob Mueller's special counsel. They argue that the president, quote, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction because that would amount to him obstructing himself. This was written in January, came exposed yesterday. Here to break it down and so much more is Andy McCarthy. Andy, you buy that theory that was put forward in January by then lawyer John Dowd?
Brian, I buy it in connection with the things that Trump is actually accused of. So I think they're correct in saying that a president can't be cited for obstruction for committing acts that are within his constitutional prerogative to commit. But I think if the position was to say a president can never commit obstruction, we know that's wrong because the Nixon and Clinton impeachments involved things like that were illegal acts like subornation and bribery of witnesses. I think those are legitimate grounds for investigating a president for obstruction.
Right.
But what Trump is accused of here involves legal actions, basically removing the FBI director and weighing in on whether Flynn should be prosecuted. He's allowed to do that, and Mueller, as an inferior executive officer, doesn't have any place inquiring into legal acts of the president on the ground that he thinks that the intention might not be proper.
All right, so today's column that you put out looks at Papadopoulos and how he figures into all this. First off, there's some problems with the story. Papadopoulos talks to Mifsud, who is a professor, and that's where the link starts. But you have a problem with the timeline. What is it?
Well, first of all, we know that they didn't even talk to Papadopoulos until a week after Trump. This is the FBI. They didn't even talk to Papadopoulos until a week after Trump was already in office. So if he's the guy who 7 months before kicked off the investigation, that's pretty peculiar. But I think the most fishy parts of the story are, is Mifsud really a Russian agent? I mean, the narrative here is that Papadopoulos, as a member of the Trump campaign, is reached out to by agents of Russia. They tell him that the Kremlin has thousands of Hillary Clinton emails, and they might be willing to use them to damage her in connection with the campaign. What we now know is, or what we now need to ask is, did this guy Mifsud and the other people he was associated with, were they really Russian agents? Or is Mueller saying that Papadopoulos had reason to think they might be? And the other question is, did they really tell him that the Russians had emails? First of all, they never saw the emails. Secondly, we have reason to doubt that they knew anything about what the Kremlin actually had. And third, did the word emails actually get mentioned? It says so in what Mueller put out when he charged Papadopoulos and when Papadopoulos pled guilty. But the people that Mifsud or that Papadopoulos spoke to, particularly this Australian ambassador, don't say that he said emails. They don't even say he said dirt. They said information that could be damaging to Clinton.
Andy, you did something that would have got an A on a research paper and for your PhD. It's all sourced. It's in your column today. Read it. You're just scratching the surface now. Bottom line is, when Downer got this information, he didn't tell the FBI. He told the State Department. That is inexcusable and bizarre. Thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Still ahead, Roseanne was fired over her controversial tweets, but is Joy Reid getting a free pass for her hateful blogs in the past? We'll debate that next, and then gradually go to break.
2, 1, 0, ignition. Liftoff.
All right, now we've ignited this, and it's time for news by the numbers. First at 11, that's how many times SpaceX has launched rockets this year. The latest blast-off happening this morning in Cape Canaveral, Florida, when the company sent a communication satellite into orbit, which means high. Next, 8, That's how many states are holding primary elections tomorrow. All eyes on California, where Democrats hope to flip several House seats. We'll explain why it could be a Republican against a Republican. And finally, 3, that's how many genders New Yorkers could soon choose from on their birth certificates. Finally, Chris Chulo, a new one would be select gender X. If they don't identify as male or female, the option's already available in Washington State and Oregon. Nice.
Thank you, Brian. All right, 2 TV personalities under fire for hateful rhetoric. ABC quick to cancel Roseanne for her tweets targeting Valerie Jarrett, as MSNBC stays silent over Joy Reid's offensive blog post. So is Reid getting a pass here? Here to debate, managing editor for Olympic Media, Katie Freitz, and Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
All right, Katie, what's going on here? I mean, if you watched Joy's show over the weekend, radio silent, you heard nothing. She gave an apology, a public one. But why not address your audience at the very least? People are saying that she should be fired for this. Is there a double standard?
Well, there absolutely is a double standard, and even CNN's Brooke Baldwin pointed this out, that it often seems like left-leaning members of the media who are caught in some sort of controversy get a much wider pass than you would if you were a conservative. It seems like MSNBC is trying to just wait this out. They're obviously shielding Joy Reid from her scandal as much as possible at the expense of the entire network's credibility.
Yeah. Antoine, so originally she said, I'm not capable of putting up some of these terrible posts. So they had the FBI look into this. By the way, who's paying for this FBI investigation? That seemed to have crumbled since then. But the most recent post that came on, Antoine, was a picture of the Virginia Tech shooter, which, by the way, killed 32 people. I think that's the largest school shooting in this country's history, with John McCain's face on top of that shooter. You want to believe that people can move on and they can apologize and they can learn from mistakes, but how do you recover from something like that?
Well, you asked if this was a double standard, and I said absolutely not. This is a classic example of the right making a bait and switch tactic. Look, bait people to believe something is not true and switch a subject. The truth of the matter is Roseanne has a body and a history of work of saying right-wing, red meat, racial toned-down rhetoric things by way of Twitter.
No one here is defending what Roseanne Barr did or what she said. No one here is saying that what happened wasn't right. All we're saying is here you have Joy Reid, as we're talking about, also Samantha Bee and the things that she said about the president's daughter. She said other things in the past as well. You're saying there's no double standard that exists.
Abby, I'm not saying you're defending. All I'm saying is you're deflecting and distracting on the issue. Look, I'm not defending,
I think
but
you
here's the
might be
difference.
deflecting, though, Antoine.
No, I'm absolutely not. 10 years ago, and a continued history of right-wing, red meat, racial rhetoric by way of Twitter is 2 different things. That's apple juice and orange juice, totally different. And what we have from Joy Reid was a thought or opinion that was 10 years ago on a blog when Roseanne was warned time and time again by ABC about some of her rhetoric, about some of the things she said before, and this is not the first time. She continued to do it. Why? Because she feels okay with doing it. She feels comfortable doing it, and she's gotten a pass because that's the environment we live in, thanks to some of the rhetoric we see coming from the commander-in-chief.
Katie, in some bizarre twist as well, MSNBC had Joy Reid on after Roseanne was fired. Andrea Mitchell as the guest, asking her what it takes for a TV host to be fired. Just really a strange booking there. What do you think happens from here? Do we just move on and say, you know what Joy Reid did, what Samantha Bee said, that's all fine. Let's just all move forward?
Well, look, I think it's absolutely important that if someone seems sincere in an apology and it seems that they have grown and they are remorseful, then you accept that and you do move on. But the fact that MSNBC is not addressing the FBI,
hold on, let her finish.
They're not addressing any of this. They're trying to simply ignore it is absolutely damaging to their credibility. Yes, they are. They're not even talking about the fact that she lied. They're not talking about the FBI. They're trying to make it go away.
Antoine, there hasn't been any mention of this FBI investigation. To Katie's point, no public statement about what happened there. So that is fair.
What MSNBC has and Joy Reid have apologized for what she has said in the past, and if you are sincere about what you just said, then we move on. It's different from something that's 10 years ago. Look, you guys on the right are so hypocritical. You want to give the president a pass for some of the things.
10 years ago. Why doesn't he get a pass on that then?
Exactly my point. And you want to give him a pass and say it was okay 10 years ago, or it was okay during that time frame. But here we are now when Joy Reid did something 10 years ago, and you want to think like, oh, well, it's not okay. You can't have a double standard. That's the definition of
We
hypocrisy.
can debate this for hours. I guarantee that. And guess what? The American people can decide who and what they want to watch. That is the beauty of all of this. Antoine, Katie, always good to see
Thank
you
God
both.
for ABC taking swift action.
Thanks for being here. All right. Coming up on the show, hundreds of illegals were supposed to be handed over to ICE here in New York City, but they all walked free thanks to the city's sanctuary policy. Our next guest says that is putting all New Yorkers at risk. Plus, President Trump's economy is booming. Unemployment is at an 18-year low. Why is this such a big deal for you? Our business panel is here. They are ready to break it all down. That is it.
We're on the front end, what will turn out to be the best prosperity boom in several decades. The economy is clicking on all cylinders.
Well, the president's top economic guide, Larry Kudlow, saying the United States is in a prosperity boom after another huge month of economic gains, as the unemployment rate drops to an 18-year low of 3.8%. So why is this such a big deal to everyday Americans? Here with some insight is our business panel on this Monday morning. The host of Making Money on the Fox Business Network, Charles Payne, screen left, former Wall Street financial analyst and FoxNews.com contributor Liz Peek, center square, and assistant editor for the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. And in fact, he actually has one in front of him. Fox's contributor.
Available for purchase.
There you go. James Freeman. All right. Where would you like to start? There seems to be, Liz, a lot of good news out there, and people seem to be a little happier.
Yeah, there's no question. Consumer confidence, business confidence, all those measures of happiness, if you will, with the economy have just gone through the roof, really beginning the day that President Trump was elected. That's the amazing thing. And what it has caused is a boom in consumer spending, a boom in hiring, and I think most important recently, all the news on manufacturing is incredibly strong. We had numbers out Friday, another big jump in manufacturing activity in almost all sectors. That's something that Democrats and liberals said would never happen. We could not bring manufacturing back to these shores. Right. Guess what? It is happening, and jobs are out there for anyone who wants them.
I was looking, Charles, online, and CNBC, of all places, your competitor, had this as a headline. The May jobs report is great news for everyone except Democrats running for office.
Yeah, well, people ultimately go with their wallets and prosperity, and then it certainly is bad news for Democrats. But it was a remarkable number on Friday, and a few things stood out to me. Goods producing jobs, which includes manufacturing. I call them all dirty fingernail jobs. Construction, manufacturing, mining, up 800,000 since January of last year. If you look at the people who came back into the jobs market, it was those long-term unemployed, 27 weeks or longer. That was the biggest chunk that came back.
Why are they coming back? Are the jobs just better?
The jobs are there. The jobs are there, and they're more confident about getting them. We have 6.6 million jobs open. We never had this many job openings before in this country.
James?
Yeah, it's really about the best time ever to look for a job. And what's really encouraging is not just a lot of jobs, good creation on the numbers Friday, but wages coming up. So it's across the board. It's high skill, low skill, and in particular, this latest report, it's people without a high school diploma, kind of maybe on the fringes of the labor force getting particular benefits. But just related to what Liz said, the investment by businesses is really encouraging, because this is how you get higher wages in the future.
Right.
They're 9.2% increase in the first quarter on capital investment by businesses. This is giving workers the tools to be more productive. Right. That means they can command higher wages.
And you know, Liz, because people have more money in their pocket because of the tax cuts and getting rid of regulation, suddenly you feel like maybe millennials might actually like capitalism.
Well, I think it's an incredibly important moment for our country because, yeah, young people don't understand why capitalism is good. Why would they? They've never been taught anything except the virtues of socialism. So now, after a decade decade of basically people not getting jobs, these young people coming out of college with all the excitement about a college degree and sitting in their parents' basement, that, you know, old saw. The truth is now they can get a job. And now look around the world. The sole economy that is barreling ahead is the United States. Long story in the Wall Street Journal this morning, another prop, about how it's slowing down in Europe. Okay, Europe's got a lot of labor problems. They've got old-fashioned rules and regulations, socialist tendencies. It's the U.S. that's doing well because we cut taxes and we've cut regulation, and businesses want to invest here. That is really incredibly important.
Charles?
I agree with all of that. And the good news is that if the highest point for consumer confidence in our country was in 2000. So the reason I bring that up is that we've got room to grow. There's still a lot of upside from where we are right now. Our participation rate has been substantially higher. There are still millions of Americans on the sideline. So this doesn't have to be a flash in the pan. I believe it's got long-term trends. And I got to tell you something. For one of the big things that stood out for me on Friday was black employment. 76,000 black people came back into the labor force. Every other racial group actually saw people leave the job markets. 200,000 more black Americans had jobs last month than the month before. We are seeing a lot of people who were locked out of this jobs market getting jobs, and these are good paying jobs. I just wanted to continue, and I think it will.
Well, I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, I think that's what's exciting is you have room to run here. That labor force participation rate still under 63%. People think, oh, it's because the baby boomers are retiring, but it's really because prime age working people are still not here in the numbers they were before the financial crisis. And so this is a hopeful report that we have room to run here, room to grow, and as the economy grows, more job creation ahead.
So, exit question, a grade card for the president regarding his economic policies after 500 days, Charles?
I would say an A-. The only thing I give him a negative on was signing that $1.3 billion.
That was a gigantic spendapalooza. Liz?
A-. My only concern, like everybody else, is we need to see some resolution on these trade discussions.
Okay.
Yeah. Cutting taxes and regulations, it's an A. So just stop messing with trade. And in fact, you could almost sort of take the rest of the term off, and I think the economy would run pretty well.
All right. Good enough. Great discussion.
Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen. All right. Meanwhile, it's 20 minutes before the top of the hour on this Monday, and Jillian's got the news.
That's right. Good Monday morning to you. Steve, to you at home as well. Teaching terror to children in Gaza. Kindergartners seen performing a mock execution of an Israeli soldier at a graduation ceremony. The disturbing video featuring sound effects of loud explosions and gunfire in the performance. One boy even holding up a sign that says Israel has fallen. The video surfacing as the Israeli military struck Hamas sites in Gaza on Sunday. An FBI agent could face charges after accidentally shooting someone at a nightclub. The Denver district attorney expected to make a decision this week. Just take a look at the video. You can see the handgun flying out of the off-duty agent's holster when he does a back handspring. It fired a single shot when he went to pick it up. A man was hit in the leg, but he is expected to be okay. High schools are starting to recognize video gaming as a real sport. More than 24 schools in Illinois now have esports teams. They compete in multiplayer games over the internet, even have jerseys and championships. The season runs from October through January, but practice starts in August. Some colleges even offer video game scholarships. A pace car slams into a wall during the warm-up lap at an IndyCar race. The driver, a General Motors executive.
Now watch this. Just bizarre. It's like he wasn't expecting to see the two-seater there.
Yeah, well, that was a $123,000 Corvette. And after hitting a bump and losing control at the Detroit Grand Prix, well, that's when the accident happened. Nobody, though, was seriously hurt, but maybe a little mental damage after wrecking a car of that price tag. I don't know.
On TV, a lot of witnesses. All right.
Yikes.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you, Jillian. All right, let's go out to Janice for some weather. Is it still raining out there, Janice?
It is. It is rain. Well, it's kind of a mist. I will tell you that. Let's take a. Do I have my clicker? Stand by. Here it is. And come over here, my friends. Hurry up, real quick. Let's take a look at the maps real quick, and I will show you what's going on in the weather. We'll talk to my friends in just a moment. There are the temperatures across the map. 52 here in New York City. The rain is moving out, which is great news. We could see the potential for some thunderstorms later on today for parts of the central U.S. And then it's going to be a quiet forecast, which is great. Hi. How are you guys? Come over here. We don't have a lot of time. Where are you from?
St. Louis, Missouri.
You guys?
Jefferson City, Missouri.
Hi. What's your name?
Addison.
And so what are you guys doing here? Get over here.
We came to see you.
Oh my gosh, group hug, group hug. Come on over
See
here.
the weather
Oh,
machine?
yay, my friends are here. Excellent. Okay, back inside. It's a love fest out here. Hi. Hi. Do I get a hug?
No one gives better hugs than Janistine.
There you go.
Yeah.
I know that.
She's a good hugger.
Yeah, she's a good hugger.
3 hours a day.
All right, if you think you can get a hug better than Janistine, write us.
Let us know
Emails,
who
yeah.
that person is.
If you're a better hugger.
Meanwhile, 17 minutes before the top of the hour, hundreds of illegals were supposed to be handed over to ICE here in New York City, but they all walked free thanks to the city's sanctuary policy. Our next guest says those laws are putting all New Yorkers at risk.
Plus, Netflix thought they made a big splash by hiring the Obamas, but the move is backfiring, some say. We've got the numbers to prove it.
May your past be the sound of your feet upon the ground and carry on.
Curry back in the corner. Nice little fake. Sets up another. Got it again. Steph Curry back-to-back threes.
Some quick sports headlines. And NBA Finals record 9 3-pointers for Golden State's Steph Curry. His 33 points led to a 122-103 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Warriors now lead the best-of-7 series 2-0. And Bryson DeChambeau leaving Ohio as a winner.
Another chance for the win. For the win.
Go.
There it is.
Oh, man, a 12-foot birdie on the second hole of a 3-man playoff in the Memorial Tournament, securing the victory for the 24-year-old. The win topped off with a handshake with golf legend Jack Nicklaus. That's pretty awesome. Abby.
Thank you so much, Elaine. All right, a new report reveals that over 440 illegal immigrants shielded by New York City sanctuary policies were released instead of being turned over to ICE.
And of those 444 illegal immigrants, dozens were arrested again after committing more crimes. No excuse for all this. Our next guest calls these policies a gift to criminals that only put legal citizens at risk.
New York State Assemblyman Kieran Lawler joins us right now. So
Morning.
explain to our audience what's happened.
So last year, New York City liberalized, if you can believe that, their sanctuary policies, widened their sanctuary policies. They took effect in January 2018. So these numbers of 440 inmates that were requested with detainers from the federal ICE Bureau to hang on to these guys. We want them to deport them. They've committed other crimes. Can you hang on to them? New York City says no. They've released them. About 10% of them, 40 or so, have gone on to commit other crimes. And this isn't over the last 5 years. This is just the first quarter of these new policies. So this injustice, this re-victimization is going to repeat itself every week, every month as we go forward with these policies.
So would they say, well, listen, we don't want to arrest them because a lot of these people are good people and we need them to turn over others in that community that might be criminals?
You know, I don't buy that. I've talked to law enforcement officers, and in the illegal immigrant community, the law-abiding illegal immigrants, they don't come forward to the police, not because they're afraid of the police, but because they're afraid of the very criminal element that sanctuary cities protect. They don't want the drug dealers to know that they snitched on them. That's why they don't come forward. It's not a fear of law enforcement.
This is the problem, because ICE, what are they supposed to do? I mean, they have certain laws in place, but when you have these sanctuary cities, they say, we don't need to follow through on those. We don't need to listen to what they tell us. You guys are free to go.
You're right. And it makes it very dangerous for ICE because in this case, New York City police have already done the risky work of arresting these people. It's expensive. They put their necks on the line. They've brought them in. Now they're released. ICE has to go back out into the community, in some cases guns drawn into dangerous situations, and rearrest them. It's unnecessary risk. It's wasteful. It encourages illegal immigration, something we shouldn't be doing.
And like California, people believe, because the cities have the biggest majority of the votes, they believe that everybody in New York State is for this. It's not. People in Los Angeles and San Francisco might be for this, and in New York City they might be for this, but around the state of New York, they're not for this policy.
There's no doubt about it. They've tried in Albany, I'm a state lawmaker, they've tried in Albany to pass sanctuary state legislation. It doesn't pass. Even in a very liberal assembly, which is more than 2-to-1 Democrat, it barely passes by a handful of votes, and it never passes the state Senate because New Yorkers don't want this. I don't think I've seen a statewide poll in New York, but in very liberal California, something like 80% of Californians don't want to be a sanctuary state, and I would think it's very similar in New York.
Well, it's so important to bring this to light. Kieran Lawler,
Thanks for
great
having
to
me.
have you on this morning.
All right. Meanwhile, we forge ahead. Former President Obama has a message for America. You weren't ready for him. Really?
Plus, Chris Kobach firing back at a, quote, snowflake meltdown after the left cries foul over his American flag Jeep with a fake gun. Carly Shimkus, she has got the reactions that are pouring in on our social media.
She's coming our way.
She told me to walk this way, talk this way, walk this way, talk this way. Well, just give me a kiss.
Here are some of the trends right now. Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach is firing back after sparking outrage at a parade this weekend in his American flag Jeep mounted with a large fake gun. Kobach, who is also running for governor, told critics, quote, the outrage over the replica gun on the back of a patriotic Jeep is the left trying to attack guns and your Second Amendment rights. I will not back down in the face of a snowflake meltdown and outrage culture.
Here with responses lighting up social media is Fox News Headlines 24/7 reporter. We all know her, we all love her, Carly Shimkus.
You're so sweet. Thank you for saying that. Well, in his original tweet, too, Kobach said that he had a blast at this parade. So little did he know the controversy that he was going to cause. The biggest complaint that I saw on social media came from people who said that this gun scared their children. So much so that the city of Shawnee even issued an apology. That's where the parade took place. They said, please know that the safety of our residents is always our highest priority, and we apologize if this made anyone feel unsafe or unsettled. Now, because of all of this, there is also a surge of support for him and what he did, considering it was a fake gun. Daniel on Twitter said, the founding fathers knew that weapons would evolve. Just remember, lose your Second Amendment rights, your First Amendment rights will soon follow. Ralph tweets, kind of late in the season for snowflakes in Kansas, isn't it? May God bless you and may you keep the Constitution alive, sir. And Jack says, awesome Jeep, I drive it down the street. No parade required. So some big time controversy over this.
All right, let's talk about controversy when it comes to Netflix. A lot of people say, well, it's a good idea to hire a president and the former First Lady, the Obamas, for Netflix. This on top of the fact that they just hired David Letterman, who's way to the left, and others.
Yeah.
What is that doing to Netflix?
Yeah, well, and Susan Rice, too. It has created some sort of disparity between their customer base. So a recent poll, recent data shows that among Republicans, their approval rating is down 16%. But look at that blue line among Democrats, it's up 15%. So no surprise there, right? Because of all of their politically charged decisions that they're making.
But it's not a good business decision. Why would you alienate either side?
According to you and a lot of other people on social media who are promoting that hashtag boycott Netflix, Don says, at Netflix, I'm canceling my subscription due to your association with Susan Rice and Barack Obama. You will not use my subscription fees to push a political agenda. Another Twitter user says, I just canceled Netflix. I was a loyal customer for years. Too political for me. So some people are saying too political. Others are saying not political enough.
Like everything else.
Yeah,
Everything's political these days.
Yeah, just hire a Bush or some
Even out
Republican.
the balance it out.
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
All right.
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Carl.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Hey, meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, today marks President Trump's 500th day in office. The president tweeting about it moments ago. We'll share that tweet because it's the law.
Kellyanne Conway.
The Singapore showdown is on. We are 8 days away from President Trump's historic summit with Kim Jong-un.
These negotiations take time. Everything's on the table.
Rudy Giuliani doubling down on this Mueller probe in this investigation, saying if you throw out the subpoena, you are only going to further ignite this battle.
There's got to be a high bar they have to reach in terms of convincing us that they're fair, convincing us that we're going to get the things we need. I want to see the Spygate report. We just can't do it without that.
Today marks President Trump's 500th day in office. And, you know, he's gotten a lot done during his time in Washington.
He's the first president in American history to be attacked by the media for keeping his promises. He's going to get convincingly reelected.
Ben Rhodes, he says Mr. Obama said this, sometimes I wonder whether I was 10 or 20 years too early.
It sounds like he's blaming the American people. Oh, they just weren't ready for my greatness yet.
Curry back in the corner. Nice little fake. Sets up another. Got it again. Steph Curry back-to-back threes.
How does this apply?
You too should be watching Fox and Fox.
I know that.
That works. That's well played. By the way, If you're just tuning in, Brian Kilmeade is now retiring from Fox and Friends. He's now become an NYPD officer.
It looks like it.
Officially.
Well, Patrick Ryder, the New York State, Nassau County Police Commissioner, gave me this pin. I thought I'd wear it. I did not know I can legally make arrests now. This is
You
a
can't.
huge deal.
Try it out.
I can or I can?
You cannot. You can make a citizen's arrest, but that's different. You cannot. You are not impersonating a police officer.
Not.
We don't.
I don't think so. But I can make. I feel more empowered to make a citizen's arrest.
There you go.
Should people be walking against traffic or doing anything illegal?
You could make 50 of them right now in front of our building.
But I have a show to do.
But I love that you wear it because it highlights that you love the police officers here in New York and all over this country, and so does the show.
Especially in
Thank
Nassau
you so
County,
much for us.
they are outstanding. Meanwhile, we're 500 days, I understand, into the president's presidency.
And you know what? 500 days of tweeting, and the president tweeted just moments ago this. This is my 500th day in office, and we have accomplished a lot. Many believe more than any president in his first 500 days. Massive tax and regulation cuts, military and vets, lower crime and illegal immigration, stronger borders, judgeships, best economy and jobs ever, and much more. ... We don't know if there's another tweet coming because this was 24 minutes ago, or if